You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since the cool kids had birthday parties at the Discovery Zone, now guides on your nostalgic tour of Disney history, one magical film at a time. I'm JB Waggoner.
And I'm Eddie Ferguson. And on today's episode, we realize that we're mad, bonkers, off our heads, and we'll tell you a secret, all the best people are, as we review Alice in Wonderland.
So fasten that safety restraint and pull up on the yellow strap, because it's time to open the vault.
Cue that Disney sound effect. I feel like our tone matched this movie quite well. Our tone there in the opener, we were both kind of channeling our inner zaniness.
Just trying to keep the spirit alive. The spirit of this movie is alive in Portland. I mean, it's alive here today and now in that movie. But let Eddie, before we jump into the movie in 1951, Alice in Wonderland that we're talking about, let's go back, because the story of Alice in Wonderland is very instrumental to Disney because it's was it the first films that the Walt Disney Company made in the 1920s. They made a series of shorts called the Alice Comedies, where Alice goes on all kinds of different adventures with live action Alice with animated characters. They made 57 of these. It's her and the cat named Julius, and they just have a grand old time. But 57 of these films is insane. The amount of stuff.
Yeah, this is what they were known for. Oswald, pre-Mickey. This is kind of what the bread and butter was. And this is early. This is 1923, 24, 25, as these are spilling out.
Yep.
So yeah, they've got a long storied history here with this source material.
Yep. So they had a lot of success here, and that's how they got the company kind of going. And then they ended up, right after the success of Snow White in the mid 30s, they bought the rights to make this movie. They had previously, they had tried to make it before this, but then another Paramount or another company had come out with their own Alice adaptation. So they kind of punted that for a little bit. But then 1938, right after Snow White, they bought it with the full intention of making it. But then it was a pretty long road of 13 years to get to this point here.
Did they buy it? I thought it was in public domain by this time. I thought it was. Because I'd seen some stories that they were multiple studios were trying to make Alice films. Disney even sued one to try and make
in 1950,
sure
right beforehand,
that there wasn't a dueling Alice movie coming out at the same time.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm not totally sure what it meant by had the rights, bought the rights. Maybe it's they worked with.
It's confusing.
So these are based off the Lewis Carroll books, which came out in 1865. So maybe they worked with his foundation to get the rights. I don't know exactly what the rationale was, but at some point they really started to try to make these a real thing in 1938, coming off the success of Snow White. But it just so happened that it just took a while because, like we talked about before, with the wars, running out of money, having to do the shorts and other things, that really it wasn't until a lot later that they were actually able to start making it a reality, till post-war in like the 1946, I believe, is when they started this. This is at a 5-year window to get made. They just kept on trucking on this film off and on.
Yeah, the way I understand is like they were, they shelved it. I don't know if there was actual animation done, and that was just kind of, put away in a box. It's not exactly described. And then by the time it comes back around, I think one of my favorite aspects of all of this is when it comes back around that, okay, we're going to make this. They're actually making this side by side with Cinderella. And there's 2 animation teams working on these films, and it becomes this duel, like a dog race. Like, who can get their movie done first. And as we can figure out just from the lineup of our reviews, Cinderella won, which is still even funnier when you think about, like, they've been working on this movie forever and they still couldn't get it out the door before the movie that they had, started from, essentially zero. And here it is. It finally spills out in 1951.
And here we are today, Eddie, reviewing it. Was this for you a rewatch? Did you guys watch this on repeat in your home? Were you one and done? Like, what's your own childhood memory of this film?
It's very light. Like, the whole time I was watching this, there were several moments where I'm even going, man, have I even ever seen this movie before? But then there's like other moments where you're going, oh yeah, this part. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, the short answer is no, this was not watched on repeat in my house. This was not one of the go-to Disney movies. So as I'm watching it and the pieces that are familiar, I would just have to assume those are coming from, I don't know, the collective nostalgia of all things Disney. Yeah. There's several of those sequences with the Cheshire Cat or the rabbit running, or the tea party with the Mad Hatter, or the scene with the Queen. Like, several of these are really embedded in the sizzle reels of Disney. These just pop up anywhere and everywhere. Yeah. But there's the other segments where I'm going, I don't think I've ever seen this before in my life, or at least I don't reckon. The oysters was the first one off the bat where I'm going, what? The walrus is going to eat babies? What in the world is going on here?
The flowers, completely forgot.
How about yourself? Is this a go-to in the Waggoner household?
It wasn't. I obviously remember same exact experience. Maybe we're having Mandela effect right now. I don't know. But yeah, this was a strange film to revisit as an adult and just sit down and watch it from beginning to end. I don't have a ton of memories of it, other than even like the small details of it. I don't know that I've ever sat down and just watched this film. This might have been the first time ever me actually just sitting and watching this. I don't know what precluded me from doing it before. But it's as acid trippy as you would think of an Alice in Wonderland film would be. I'm thinking back to some of the memories from watching the 2010 Johnny Depp version of it. And that seems like this is on par with the zaniness and the craziness of it. I wish that I almost could go and read. I kind of want to go read the book, or just even parts of it, to see, like, is this really what's in the book? Is this really what we signed up for? Like, and what was it? So it's just like, what is actually in the book and how did it make it here? It seems to me like it's fairly close with some only one or two new scenes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other aspect of this that I was trying to search my memory and rack my brain. Like, I don't even remember being introduced to the book.
No, me neither.
I mean, I feel like we had some pretty robust, like, literature classes, where we had some great English teachers that really did a good job of exposing us to a lot of different pieces of literature. I just don't even remember this one, like, coming up in conversation. It's just like, and I mean, it's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is Lewis Carroll. Like, any list of like the 100 books you should read before you die, like, this is always put on there. And so that's why, like, as I stopped and I thought about it, it felt really odd that I had not had any exposure to it. I did a little bit of, looking up and kind of what about the book and different things like that. I had no idea that Lewis Carroll was a mathematics professor at Oxford.
What?
Like, I never would have guessed that. Like, really? Like, you would, that those seem such a just juxtaposition in my head of like a mathematics professor at Oxford, you would just assume so straight laced. And then the guy who, wrote Alice in Wonderland, just that doesn't jive for me. I think the best description I heard of this was this is an example of the literary nonsense genre.
That's a whole genre? There's an actual genre for that?
Apparently there's a whole genre of literary nonsense. And this is one of the best examples of it. Like, and I'm like,
of the nonsense genre, this is the top 5 right here. This is the Mount Rushmore of weird.
Yeah. And as I'm like looking at some of the other, like I've not, heard of too many of these. Like, I mean, some of the ones that I like, I've read that are associated with it are like Roald Dahl, where you've got like Willy Wonka, you've got The Big Friendly Giant, Matilda, those types of things. Or Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, I can kind of understand a little bit of like the nonsense genre and all of that. And again, I'm basing this opinion solely off of the movie. So forgive me if you're like screaming at us and you're going, but the book is so much better. Okay, sure. But I mean, those that I am familiar with like Roald Dahl or Douglas Adams, those seem to have a stronger, shall we say, story than this one.
Yeah.
This just seems like such a, I don't even know what this movie's about. Like it is like, sure, acid trip sounds like a great way to describe it because it's like, I don't know what this movie's really about. Like it's just like one nonsensical thing after another. And then boop, she wakes up.
Yeah. So we get Alice, who's basically playing the straight man in this giant ball of nonsense. And it's funny because she starts off as this like aloof, can't pay attention, bored by her sister. I think it's her sister, maybe her mother. I don't know. Reading to her at the time. And she's just lost in her own imaginary world and then follows the rabbit down the rabbit hole. But then she starts off as like very curious, like wanting imagination, wanting if I had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense, like totally wanting, and then immediately goes the complete opposite direction. And she's like still trying to find the rabbit, but she's like, no, I'm trying to do the right thing and I'm trying to follow and do everything else. And why is everything else so crazy? And so you get this like Tweedledee and Tweedledum near the front, and they try to give this like parable about curiosity, about not following curiosity, which is where we get the oyster story from. So that's where it starts to feel like this is supposed to be sort of a parable, but then it immediately goes off and goes down its own way. Then she grows into the house. You get the flowers, the caterpillar. Like the Cheshire Cat is just its own weirdness in of itself. Like that makes no sense. You got the voice actor that does Winnie the Pooh as Cheshire Cat. I recognize that. And just the thing is just everybody in this world is mad. Everybody's crazy. Everybody's doing their own thing. And then it comes out of it and she just goes back to her life and she goes and has tea. It's like, what there's something in here about following good advice, but nobody has good advice in this. So maybe that's she should be listening to her elders. I don't really know. I'm basically, that's the long way of saying you're right. There is no moral to the story. There is no story to be had here. It's just a girl who wanted something, got it, and hates it. It's probably it. Kind of like my kids with sardines. Wanted it. We bought the sardines, opened the can. You got the can of sardines and they immediately were done.
Your kids wanted sardines? How did that even
I don't know how my son got bent on it, but he just was like, I want sardines. We're like, you sure? They're really strong. Like, no, I want sardines. I want to try sardines. So we went to the store. He was so excited, grabbed a can of sardines, brought it home.
So excited.
And he's like anticipating it. And the moment we twist it and open it up and that smell hits him immediately. Nope. Just no. Now we turn to this into Parent Corner. We should have waited for the end for that. But that's what she is in this. She's like, I want a world of my own where nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
And then she can't get through the door, and then it's flooding with her tears, and she's already upset and can't find the rabbit and is already ready to go home. So,
yeah, I guess the strongest, through thread of the whole movie that just kind of ties this together is for the longest time her following the White Rabbit all the way through, which is where we get follow the White Rabbit, or the whole White Rabbit thing that is now worked its way into a lot like that bit from Lewis Carroll is in. I know it's referenced in a lot of other things. The one that first comes to mind is what is it, Mr. Robot? Isn't that in that?
Yeah,
I think it's also referenced in The Matrix.
Yeah.
Several other pieces, that kind of the idea of following the White Rabbit has kind of become synonymous with following, dare I say, kind of the more the crazy, the more insane kind of down its eventual path.
Well, some of the best moments from this film, I would say, probably are mostly music related. We get some very iconic moments just from the music with the song, with the very unbirthday, probably near the top of my list, if not like, yeah, I would say even more than like the main song that she sings. That the very unbirthday, I think about that all randomly in the middle of the day. There'll be just like someone celebrating a birthday, and I'll think, who's celebrating an unbirthday today? I just love that song in particular.
Well, and what's interesting is, they never released the soundtrack. Like Disney for the longest time never considered this as more of a musical, or even those as like full musical pieces. And it took several decades for Disney to actually release a soundtrack for this where people could actually get their hands on it. Because, and I mean, to a certain degree, like I understand, we just looked at Cinderella. Cinderella's musical pieces are, these big integral parts of the story. Here, it just seems kind of like these additions that season it, that just kind of bring it up.
Yeah.
But I would agree. They definitely make this movie for me. And then I would say for me that the second highlight is the voice cast. I kind of see this as the first time that we see this all-star studded voice cast. I can't remember one of like the new Illumination movies or whatever that I just recently saw a trailer for. You get to the end of the trailer and there's like 15 celebrities.
Yep.
I mean, it's like the red carpet of the Golden Globes in this movie. This is really the first time that we see an animated movie where it is just like one right after another. And this really sets up kind of a lineage or a dynasty of Disney voice actors. We have Catherine Beaumont as Alice. She's going to come back in a very notable role. Even though as soon as I hear her, I'm like, wait a second, that's Wendy, right? Like, so she'll come back as Wendy. You have Ed Wynn as the Mad Hatter. He comes back as the uncle in Mary Poppins, the one that laughs and floats up.
Yep.
That's where we see him again. You have Richard Hayden. This is a bit of a stretch for the Disney thing, but Richard Hayden as the caterpillar, he is a very well-known actor of this era. I think the one that most modern audiences would immediately think of when they think of him, he is going to be Max Detweiler from The Sound of Music, Uncle Max, that gets them into the musical, into the music competition. And then you've got Um, uh, uh, I just lost my notes here. Where was this guy at? Oh, nope. Sorry, I lost my place. The other one was yes, Sterling Holloway. Sterling Holloway, you had referenced prior. This guy goes on to be one of the main Disney voice actors. He's going to show up in a little bit. He was already in Dumbo. He was already in Bambi as Flower. Here he is as the Cheshire Cat. He's going to be Caw in the Jungle Book. He's going to be a couple voices in the Aristocats. And then, as you mentioned, he is Winnie the Pooh.
Yep.
So yeah, I could go on and on. There's several other ones here, but like one of the things that I really enjoyed about this is like you're seeing that beginning of the voice casts in these animated films and those that really become well-known Disney voice actors.
Yeah, you can start hearing similar voices as they've gone along, and you just kind of start seeing more and more of that as we go. The song that I can't help but think of with that takes me directly to one of our next things is the teacups at Disneyland. This is the big representation for this movie at the parks. And man, when I start hearing all the like immediately I'm like, oh, I want to be at Disneyland right now. I love that. Just the sound is so theme park, fun, energetic. And it gave me all the feels when I was listening to that when they're going to the house.
Yeah, the Mad Hatter teacups are arguably one of the most prolific Disney theme park rides.
Mm-hmm.
There are 6 castle parks, and the teacups show up in 5 of them. The only one it is not in is the Shanghai Disneyland park. All other castle parks have a teacups ride.
Like right next to the castle?
Quite impressive.
Like literally next to the castle?
I don't know I don't know exactly where each of them are. I know like Disneyland and Disney and like Magic Kingdom, they're just off from there. But yeah, you're right. Like that was what jogged my memory as well, is hearing a bit of the soundtrack and thinking to the teacups. But I'll have to tell you, it has been a hot while since I have gotten into the teacups, because the double spinning just I can't
doesn't
do
sit
it
well with you.
I could ride like the Beast at Kings Island over and over and over and over and be just fine.
Midwest reference right there.
The teacups, I can't even get through halfway. I remember in 2012, I think was the last time that I rode the teacups. Hopped in with my brother-in-law and my nephew Joel, and Joel is maybe 3 or 4 at this time. 3 or 4, and I kind of knew that spinning wasn't my thing, but didn't know how bad it was then. And I looked over at Phil and I'm like, we're not gonna like spin a whole bunch, are we? And he goes, Eddie, he's like 3. There's no way he can, we're just going to let him spin the wheel however he can. He can't spin it that hard. I'm like, okay, like how bad can it be? He grabs that thing and just starts going, spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And I am just like green. I did not toss the cookies, but man, did I get close. And I have not stepped foot on the teacups ever since. We always go by. We always stand right near there.
Great memories, as long as you're not on it.
I know. And I know there's going to be a day where like my kids are going to see it and they're going to want to go on it. And I'm going to have to suck it up and be the good dad and just hop on and do it. But yeah, those are the teacups. But there's a lot of other representation of Alice all throughout the Disney parks. Magic Kingdom has the Cheshire Cat Cafe right there by the teacups, and they've got a couple of like really well-known like Instagram Disney desserts there. It's like the Cheshire Cat tail. That's a well-known pastry. The only ride like dark ride for Alice in Wonderland is at Disneyland. And I like that ride. It's the 2-story one, right? And then you like come outside briefly and kind of go down. I just think that's a very unique dark ride, and it's the only one. I think it's pretty cool. Is that a go-to? Do you ride that one as well?
We didn't do it in a long time. Now, granted, we haven't been in forever, but that wasn't one that we hit up right away. I think we might have done the teacups. Like the teacups is far and away the more popular of the rides, but that is definitely an underrated
classic
one. Yeah, definitely a classic ride.
Yeah.
But interesting that they don't actually have that at a lot of the other parks. So
no, it's the only one. The other representation of Alice is actually over at Disneyland Paris. They have an Alice in Wonderland hedge maze.
Ooh.
Right in the corner of their central hub.
Sounds like anxiety.
I thought was pretty cool.
Sounds just like a bunch of anxiety for me, just trying to get in and out of that thing.
Of a acid trip themed hedge maze in another country. So I mean, it's well represented all the way throughout.
One of the iconic characters from this that we haven't mentioned yet is the Queen of Hearts. And I found myself just kind of enjoying the ridiculous court case that they like kind of. Mm-hmm. Well, while we're at it, since we're here, before we chop their heads off, as she tries to say many times, let's at least put them on trial. Let's at least get a couple witnesses. And they bring up, like, I thought that was a little fun, like of them kind of playing off, like she's wanting to just cut off their heads and she's dying to do it. And then they just kind of play it over and over again. And then when they finally do it, then she grows really big. And then as she's telling off the queen, then she like grows back and she doesn't realize it. I think that was probably one of my more favorite moments from it. Not because it had any story plot whatsoever, but it was just kind of playing off of each other really well. That's probably one of my more favorite sequences and all this, because that's basically what this whole movie is just random. Now we're walking down sequences. A path, and then now somebody's riding away the path. Oh, now we're crying in a wood, and now we're in front of a pipe smoking caterpillar. And now it's just one thing after another.
That was one of the hard things about watching this with Lewis, who's Mr. Highly logical.
Who's the bad guy?
He wants to know who the bad guy is. And we get to the sequence where she's walking on the path and there's the broom dog just brushing away the path. And he just, Why is he brushing away the path?
That is a very good question.
And he just keeps asking it to me. And I'm like, buddy, I don't know. But why is he doing it, Dad? Like, I don't, and I'm like, I have the same question. I can't answer it for you, but there it is. Now, I think the Queen of Hearts is also a good thing or highlight of this. Oddly enough, this movie just has several really iconic characters of the Queen of Hearts, the Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, right? Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Like if you go to a Disney park, I mean, there's another representation is these characters are usually out in full force. Yep. They've got all of the ones that the Mad Hatter, Alice, Queen of Hearts, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. I think the only one I haven't seen there would be like Cheshire Cat, but like these are well-known, like loved characters. But it just strikes me as so odd as I'm like, what is the draw of this story? What is the draw of this movie outside of just like funny little moments, montages?
I think it speaks to in the similar to what a train wreck is. Like They're so strange. They just draw you in, and they're just like they are. It's creativity for creativity, Eddie. It's not about story and development and morals and so. It's just, what if there was just a talking cat in a tree, just grinning at us and causing all kinds of havoc? What if the two very large, random-looking twins were just up and around and making nonsense? What if there was a high hatter, like having a tea party where he would never let you sit down and eat and never drink the tea because he would have to change seats over and over again? There's a lovable quality as well as a maddening and like stressful quality to each one of these characters. There was some moments every time I've watched this, I do feel bad for the White Rabbit, because he feels like one of the few people that is on a mission and is trying to do something, and it seems fairly logical. Other than when
destroy his beautiful clock,
they destroy his clock, they destroy his house. I felt so bad. Felt so bad for the dude. Every time I see him, it's like my heart goes out to the White Rabbit.
You know what I was thinking is this movie really does fit well in and amidst several of the Disney movies that we have reviewed up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of the drunken sequence in Dumbo or the Pleasure Island sequence in Pinocchio, and the granddaddy of them all, Fantasia.
Lots of Fantasia moments in this.
There's a lot of movies where you're just going, I mean, what were they high on when they made this movie and animated this one out? Like, it's not an exception. Like, this is a reoccurring theme here with the Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Well, that's where they got started, is just vignettes of little zany comedic, a lot of physical humor. And this is just another level of it, trying to do it in a feature film version rather than like smaller vignettes, trying to keep a sense of it together. But yeah, this is its peak of what Disney really is about.
Oh my. So I think we've come to that moment where we need to rate this and determine, do we just throw it back in the vault, or is this essential, or where in the middle does this fall? JB, I'm going to let you go first.
So I am going to go with, it's hard because when you've got this many iconic moments, characters, for little kids, it's very entertaining, like very entertaining for them. My daughter was loving it. She was so sad when she had to go to bed with 20 minutes left. Fond memories of it, as silly and crazy as it is. And it's hard to turn off. If it's on, it just grabs your attention. Like, you're not going to quickly change the channel or whatever. You're going to make it through several of them. So for me, I'm going to go with a 3 entertaining.
I'm right there with you. I'm going to say 3 entertaining as well. My kids loved it. I think I like how you said it, where like if it's on, you're not going to turn it off. You know, it could be a great background type of thing, because there's no story to follow. Like, there's no like thing you have to keep up on. And there are some great animation sequences. It is like you said about the music, there's some really great musical sequences, great voice acting. So as much as like, I wouldn't say that this does not crack any list of mine of like favorite Disney movies whatsoever. Yeah. But I will say a 3 entertaining.
Well, there you go. Now that we filled you up on a little bit of nostalgia, it's time for a quick bit of Disney news. And we've been leading up to this. We've been leading up to...
We got some big news.
Big news.
Big Disney news.
We got for the first time since the 30s or whatever, we finally have another Steamboat Willie movie that you all are going to be dying to go see. Now that it's in public domain, and man, we get it right off the bat with a brand new Steamboat Willie horror film. called Mickey's Mousetrap. If you haven't,
Mickey's Mousetrap.
Go look for this on YouTube. It's cinema verite. It is of the upper echelon. This is going to be up for an Oscar next year. Just letting you all know. It's exactly what we want. It's the same thing as what happened last year with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Blood and Honey.
That's a better title. I like that title a little bit better. But it's just a bunch of kids in an arcade, and guess who comes and kills them? Somebody wearing a Steamboat Willie mask. It's the movie we all deserve, Eddie.
It really is. And what's funny is this was not the only one to come out. There's a really bad video game, which kind of the same premise.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting to me is like, why is it always the first one out? Like the just make it fast and dirty it's always a horror film.
Yep.
Like that's just
low budget.
I guess those are easy to produce on a low budget. It's a pretty straightforward story and plot line.
It looked horrible. It looked not even just like what them reusing. It's just like every second of anybody talking on screen is horrible in the few moments that this thing exists. But good on them for being the first one. And I like how they waited a little bit until somebody else had posted something online, and then that person at first got their video tagged for a copyright infringement
on YouTube.
Then they fought it back, and then Disney released it. They're like, yeah, we're fine. We're not gonna challenge you on this, obviously, because it's public domain. So I think we're gonna see a ramp up. We're gonna see even more Disney stuff now that there's already been someone has already fought the first good fight. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more.
I think that's a really good point. I think people were cautious of going, is Disney going to go quietly on this one? You know, like, and so everybody's waiting for that horror film to come out and go, okay, what does Disney do to them? And I think that it's still unknown. But I think we'll get this slow trickle, and then I'm just waiting for like the real test of it all and see what Disney does with it all. But yeah, Mickey's Mousetrap. The trailer is currently on YouTube for your viewing pleasure.
You can't unsee it. Coming out today on Disney Plus, we have Echo, the Echo series. It's all landing when you're hearing this right now. All the episodes should be out same day as the release. A new little tactic that Disney is trying as they just kind of tinker around with all the different shows that they have. So this is a offshoot of the Hawkeye series that came out a couple of years ago. So this is following Echo, the deaf character and paraplegic, right? She has her leg. I think she had lost a leg. But anyways, so she's
Hawkeye was a long time ago.
I'm sorry, Eddie. So yeah, I'm intrigued by it. This is some of the very few Marvel content we're going to get this year. So I'm going to load it up for sure, but I don't know. Are you, Eddie? Are you going to be watching this as people are listening to this?
No.
Just no.
I have no desire. Like, I'll be honest, I haven't even finished Ahsoka. Like, I didn't even make it through Ahsoka. Just lost interest. And so, like, I just don't even have any desire to get this one going. I'm enjoying Percy Jackson. I think that is really good.
I love that you've watched or you're watching Percy Jackson and not finishing Ahsoka. That makes me.
Yeah.
That's where we are now. That's the level of Disney fandom we have. We have a podcast, but we can't finish their own content.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what did it in for me was when I can't remember the character's name. Like she gets stabbed with a lightsaber the exact same way that Qui-Gon Jinn got stabbed.
Oh, I know.
He dies, but somehow she miraculously comes back. Like the second like we open and boom, she's just fine. No problems whatsoever.
It's episode 2, I think, right?
I'm done. Yeah, like you just pulled me out. And I think I hung in there for maybe one more episode. And I'm just like, nah, this just isn't real. This isn't real Star Wars to me. Like if Qui-Gon Jinn dies at that and she doesn't, no, sorry, done.
Shout out to my coworker.
And I just rewatched Phantom Menace and I like saw it again. I'm like, yeah, this is like identical location, everything, lightsaber wound. No.
Love it. Shout out to my coworker, Michaela Graham. She came up to me. She had only watched the first episode of Ahsoka, and she was like, "I'm enjoying this, but this one chick, she's super annoying. But thank God she dies at the end of the first episode. So glad to be moved on from her." And she's like, "But I'm going to watch the second episode tonight," and I'm like, just wait. She comes back.
Michaela, I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
And you got to meet Michaela when you were in town. Yes. So double shout out for Michaela. She you can text me or Teams me when you hear this, but anyways.
Yeah. I won't be watching Echo unless you watch it and you're like, "Oh my goodness, Eddie, you have to watch it."
It's as good as Miss Marvel.
Back exactly is going to be, is this another Miss Marvel? Is there, light cube things that I don't know? I still don't understand Miss Marvel.
But what you do understand, Eddie, is Disney World and all the changes that are coming to it. So the floor is yours on this next thing.
I'm a big Disney World fan for sure. So there was a lot of things that that wonderful pandemic stole from us, took away from us, robbed our joy, rained on our parades. There are many, each with their own degree of severity. You be the judge of that. I will not be judging those for you. But some of those have been some dramatic changes to the way Disney World functioned. And finally, as of when this drops, January 9th, Disney World will be undergoing some pretty dramatic changes back to the way things were. First of all, you no longer need a reservation in addition to your ticket.
Thank you.
This is Disney World. I don't know if they've changed it at Disneyland yet. I've not heard any news of it, of what's changing there. But as long as you are not if it's a, how do they say it? A date-based ticket, you don't need to also do a reservation. So for those of you who don't know, ever since the pandemic, you had to buy your ticket and then go and get a park reservation for the exact park on the exact day in addition to it, which just never made sense to me. And it drove a lot of people nuts. My parents went to Disney World, had bought tickets, showed up, and they didn't know that they also needed a reservation on top of their ticket. And it was like this huge ordeal for them to get to go to the park that day. So this is big. If you have a pass, they have these good to go days, and then you don't need a reservation for that. But a lot of the annual pass, they still kind of have to get on a reservation for many days. Which I don't know. That kind of makes a little bit of sense to me, but we just miss the days where you can go and come as you'd like, wherever you'd like to go. That's always a lot of fun. The other big change. What Disney World did is they implemented rules where if you're going to park hop, you couldn't park hop until after 2 p.m., which was such a pain.
Silly.
And it's like, why too? It's just lame. And in particular at Disney World, where the parks are really spread out. Like, we're not talking DCA and Disneyland where you just walk across the Esplanade there. You've got to get some moving around. So if you wanted to hit, if you paid extra, remember Park Hopper is an upcharge. If you paid extra for that and you wanted to try and hit, 2, 3 parks or even all 4 of them, it was near impossible because you had to wait till after 2. There was all of these weird restrictions put on that. So now that is floodgate open. Go and come as you would like when it comes to park hopping. The third big change, a popular thing at Disney World, is what they call the Disney dining plan, where you can actually pre-book all of your dining. You pay like a flat rate per person per night of your stay, and you get all of your meals where you just kind of tap your magic band and you can grab it. That had gone away, and that's really popular for a lot of people because you're pretty much pre-budgeted, pre-locked in. You know what you're going to spend on all your meals, and there it is. Debate whether or not it's a true savings or not, but a lot of people just love the joy of vacation. Hey, it's already done for me. That comes back with all of these changes as well. Those were kind of the 3 big things that when they changed them for the pandemic, people were really upset. So big day for Disney World fans as some of those beloved things come back.
Are they bringing back the shuttle from the airport?
That's the big one. I think everybody would lose their minds. I don't know if Disney fully understands how much money that made them. A free bus service from the airport to Disney World. When they're making money hand over fist, just because people would go, yeah, I'll come. Because what it does is it locks people into the Disney bubble. Like, Disney World is massive, right? Disney World is the size of San Francisco. So drop people in the middle of that, offer them free transportation anywhere inside of your Disney bubble, but they don't need a rental car or anything else, right? So what happened was when they no longer have that free service, a lot of people just go, I'm just going to rent a car or find other means of transportation, and they're not stuck in the bubble. Or people are going, I now have to pay for transportation, which is in higher cost, and that comes out of the overall budget for your vacation. So
yeah,
that's less money they're going to spend there at Disney. And so that's where it's like, yeah, it's funny that you bring that one up, because that's the one everybody is saying this week when they go, oh, this is coming back, this is coming back, this is coming back. Now, if only the Magical Express could come back. Now, if only the Magical Express could come back.
We are all the time talking about our future Disneyland, Disney World mega adventure that we're going to be doing someday. And it is always frustrating to think about having to also secure some way to get to and from places where it's like, I just want to go and be there and just be there.
I'll tell you, that was incredible, because what you would do is they would mail you ahead of time. If you were staying at a Disney resort, that's how they kind of did it. Like, you pay extra to stay at a Disney resort, but it was always worth it because it came with all these added benefits. But they would mail you luggage tags and little, like what, like the airlines put on that white tag for your luggage tag that they put on there. But this one was yellow, and it had, of course, Mickey heads on it and everything like that. And you would put it on at home. And when you checked in, let's say you're flying out of Indianapolis, you check in at the Southwest counter there. Southwest puts its one right next to it. That is the last time you see your bag until it magically appears in your room at Disney.
Oh,
you never had a fire.
beautiful.
They would pull it off the line at the airport. You just walked straight over to your Magical Express, whisked you off to Disney World. do whatever you want. As soon as your room is available, they have your luggage waiting there for you at your room. Magical. Amazing. And that's why people would just go, I'll go stay in the Disney bubble and I'll never leave.
What am I doing with my life, Eddie? Why have I never experienced this? It's not a thing anymore.
That benefit's no longer there. You missed it.
Well, okay. Well, that's ending on a sad note, but there's your Disney news for this week. But before we go, Eddie,
some good stuff coming back.
Yes, the good stuff's coming back, and I hope you and your family also have a magical week as well.
I anticipate we will. One of the projects I'm working on this week, you're gonna appreciate this. Some of you may be familiar with. I know we showed you guys this when we were hanging out with you. Our kids love their Yoto players, which is, if you don't know, is like a screen-free audio player for kids, and you can make these little cards or buy cards from them, or they put it in and it reads a story or does music or whatever. Well, you can also link podcasts to these cards. And so I was looking up a few different ones, like Jesus Storybook Bible and different things like that. And I asked Lewis, hey, do you like this? Like, do you want me to make a card of that? And he goes, oh, yeah, that'd be great. He goes, Daddy, you know what I would really like you to make me a card for? I was like, yeah, what's that, buddy? Could you make me a card for you and Uncle JB's podcast?
Oh my goodness. We need to do a special Lewis episode.
So this week I will be making a Yoto card for Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast.
We are branching
Lewis
out.
wants to listen to us.
New mediums, new places to get us. Man.
Some new listeners.
That is hilarious.
Isn't that fantastic, though? It melted my heart.
Wow, we are now moving up to 21 listeners on this thing. We were at 20 for so long. Now it's 21. Lewis, now breaking our hearts with that, man.
I know. So with that, everyone, you have got your weekly dose of Disney nostalgia.
Be sure to subscribe to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast, wherever you listen to your other favorite podcasts, and give us a look on YouTube, where we're posting the video version of this as well.
And while you're there, please give us a like, leave us a comment. Wherever you listen to your podcast, give us a 5-star review. And hey, help us out. Share this with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com. We can see all of our nostalgic reviews of Disney movies. This is our first series that we did from 1988 to 2005. Not the episodes came out, but the movies that came out during that time. And you can check out all of the original Disney classics that we are now going through now.
There was podcasting in 1988? Tune in. Please tune in next week as we review Peter Pan.
Thank you for listening. And remember, off with his head.